I'm also cognizant that we got people watching us who probably don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, probably never have a martial arts lesson in their life, maybe thinks fighting is for thugs or for guys in cages. You know, what do you say to people when they come up to you and say, no, I don't fight. I would never come and train at your academy in Torrance. You know, I'm a lover, not a fighter. Like, what do you say when people say that?
You know, first of all, I want to just make a slight adjustment to what you said. People who've never heard of jiu-jitsu, I think that's pretty rare now. Fortunately, is that the UFC is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing spectator sport in the world. And every single weekend, the UFC is an infomercial for the efficacy of jiu-jitsu, because if you go in there without it, you're getting choked out. And if you go in there with jiu-jitsu, right, Joe Rogan is yelling, rear naked choke, doing this, the twister, the triangle choke, here's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. So Joe Rogan's one of the greatest ambassadors we have for jiu-jitsu, because he's a black belt and he's out there spilling his guts and giving all this energy. So as a spectator, it's impossible to watch an MMA or at least a UFC fight and not feel like, wow, this is some amazing stuff. Right, and this all began back in 1993 when the UFC started. My family was part of that beginning. Royce went in there and choked out these giants, and people are looking at the screen thinking, man, this little guy's gonna get beat up for sure, and then he wins. He's gonna lose for sure, and then he chokes the guy out. 15 minutes later, Dan Severn's tapping out from a triangle choke. So people have heard of jiu-jitsu. What's shocking people right now, Brian, is the degree to which jiu-jitsu has just skyrocketed in popularity, both in public awareness, but also in practice. And I think some people, what they don't understand is why it's so good. Why is jiu-jitsu so effective? Why is there, like people like you, your fans, for example, right, from every walk of life, your fans go, man, Brian's a great guy, very smart guy, but why is he so big on this jiu-jitsu thing? What's wrong with him? Like, we get it. People do karate, people do taekwondo, people do whatever else, kung fu, and he does jiu-jitsu. And why is he touting it so loud, so often, to so many people he talks to? Why is it such a big deal to him? And he's a grown man. He's not a 7 or 8 year old kid who's, you know, doing this and making forms. It's not that. He's a real grown man, intelligent, right, cultured individual who touts jiu-jitsu like it saved his life. And I think that's where the mishap or the disconnect is, which is why I get so passionate to get on here and communicate about it, because once perfectly communicated, why jiu-jitsu is so ridiculously amazing and why really it's an unfair advantage for anyone who knows it. Once I communicate that truth, we turn jiu-jitsu kind of couch fans into jiu-jitsu practitioners. And that's where every Gracie breakdown comes from. That's where every interview comes from. Everything has one purpose: get someone off the couch of skepticism and onto the mat of effectiveness, jiu-jitsu mat somewhere around the world. And if after this interview, one person goes, man, that Rener guy, he's kind of loud. He might've had, he has a little too much energy, but he sounds like he makes sense and I want to go practice some jiu-jitsu. If we can do that, we're good to go. Because the reality is, Brian, you know this. You didn't, I don't know, have you practiced martial arts before jiu-jitsu?
I hadn't really. I mean, I think I took a Taekwondo class when I was a kid.
Everybody has.
I hadn't in like
except for
10
me,
years.
everybody has. So the point is, but here's the question I have for you. 1 year after you had been training jiu-jitsu, 1 year, just 1 year, not 10, not even a black belt, probably a dirty white belt. 1 year after you started doing jiu-jitsu, how effectively would you have manhandled your original Brian Rose with no jiu-jitsu? Tell me the difference in skill and confidence.
Yeah, like 10x,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, and that's what we need to talk about right now, is I need to somehow communicate that to your viewers and your fans, that level of effectiveness in that little amount of time, how is that possible? Because we see the movies, you see the Karate Kid, you see the general idea about martial arts, Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, right? That's when my dad came to America, is during that era, where it was all about the pretty punches and kicks. And don't get me wrong, those have their place. However, what's the difference between that and what's happening right now? Why is it that jiu-jitsu is having a rise that no other martial art has had in such a little amount of time? So with your permission, I'd like to demonstrate what I believe needs to be understood fully in order for someone to know, A, how to win a street fight in the most efficient way possible, and B, why jiu-jitsu is such an unfair advantage. Shall we?